Olivia Summers stared out the viewport of the massive ship as Earth slowly shrank into a tiny blue dot behind them. She still could not believe she was here. Just 3 months ago, she had been working at her small veterinary clinic in Montana, specializing in animal behavior. Now she was heading to the stars as part of the first human delegation to the Galactic Confederation. The ship vibrated slightly beneath her feet. The aliens called it the Horizon Dawn, and it was unlike anything humans had ever built. Olivia turned away from the viewport and walked down the corridor toward the briefing room. Her footsteps echoed against the metallic floor. She adjusted. Her blue uniform, still not used to the stiff material that marked her as part of the human contingent. "Captain." Frank Wright nodded at her as she entered the room. He stood next to a tall, reptilian alien whose scales shimmered with a greenish hue under the bright lights. The alien's eyes narrowed as they settled on Olivia. "This is Commander Streck of the Varaxian Fleet," Captain Wright said. "Commander. This is Olivia Summers, our animal behavior specialist." Commander Streck made a sound that resembled a snort. "A pet doctor? This is who your species sends to represent them." His voice had a strange clicking quality that the translator implanted in Olivia's ear converted to English. "Miss Summers is highly qualified in understanding complex animal behaviors," Captain Wright replied calmly. "We believe her skills will be valuable." "The Confederation doesn't need humans to tell us about animals," Commander Streck said. "We have been bioengineering creatures for security and labor for centuries." Olivia stepped forward. "With respect, Commander, sometimes understanding natural behavior can provide insights that technology misses." The Varaxian's tail twitched, and what Olivia guessed was irritation. Humans think they know so much after barely leaving their own atmosphere. He turned back to Captain Wright. "The briefing starts in 10 minutes. Try to keep your pet doctor from embarrassing your species." Further, with that, he strode out of the room. Captain Wright sighed. "Don't take it personally, Summers. The Varaxians were against including humans in the Confederation to begin with. They'll come around eventually." Olivia nodded, but she wasn't so sure. In the 2 weeks since they had boarded the Horizon Dawn, none of the 17 alien species had shown much interest in humans except as curiosities. The other human delegates at least had skills the aliens recognized: military tactics, scientific knowledge, diplomatic experience, but a veterinarian? To the advanced alien species, she might as well have been a fortune teller. The briefing room filled with delegates from various species. Some looked almost human, while others defied description. A gelatinous being that seemed to float inside. A containment suit settled next to Olivia, its inner organs visible through its transparent skin. It turned what she assumed was its face toward her. "You are the animal one, yes?" it asked through the translator. "I'm Olivia Summers, animal behavioral specialist," she replied with a smile. "Curious choice," the alien replied. "I am senior biologist." "Zelna of the Praxi, we created the Raxis that guard this ship. Perhaps you would like to see them sometime? Though I doubt your primitive understanding would grasp their complexity." Before Olivia could respond, the room darkened and a holographic display appeared in the center. Commander Streck began speaking about their approach to the Confederation's central hub world. Nexus Prime. After the briefing, Olivia found herself following biologist Zelna through restricted sections of the ship. They stopped at a reinforced door marked with symbols she couldn't read. "Our pride," Zelna said as the door slid open, revealing a dimly lit chamber. Inside were large enclosures containing Volf-sized creatures. They had 6 legs, sleek black fur, and elongated heads that ended in powerful jaws. Their eyes glowed amber in the low light. "The Raxis," Zelna explained, "bioengineered from the apex predators of 3 different worlds. They serve as our security force. Their senses are unmatched, and their loyalty is programmed at the genetic level." Olivia watched as a handler entered one of the enclosures. The alien wore heavy protective gear and carried a device that emitted a high-pitched sound. The Raxis backed away, ears flattened against its head. "They respond only to their handlers," Zelna said. "Each one is imprinted to recognize specific pheromones. Without proper authorization, they would tear apart any intruder within seconds." Olivia Observe the creature's body language. Despite Zelna's proud explanation, she noticed something that concerned her. The Raxes wasn't showing aggression toward its handler, it was showing fear. And in her experience, fear-based compliance was never reliable in the long term. How often do they escape containment? Olivia asked. Zelna's gelatinous body rippled. In what might have been surprise, they do not escape. They are perfectly engineered. Then why is that one's enclosure reinforced more heavily than the others? Olivia pointed to a separate chamber where a larger Raxes paced back and forth. Its movements agitated. That is Vex, the alpha specimen. He is more willful than the others, but he is also the strongest and fastest. Worth the extra precautions. Over the next week, Olivia tried to learn more about the Raxes, but was repeatedly blocked by various crew members. Lieutenant Krell, another Varaxian officer, seemed to take particular pleasure in reminding her of her insignificance. "Why don't you go count stars, human?" He sneered when he found her near the Raxes holding area again. "These are not pets for you to coo over." Olivia stood her ground. "I'm just trying to understand the creatures better." "Understand?" Lieutenant Krell laughed, a harsh sound that made nearby crew members turn. What could a primitive human possibly understand that our scientists haven't already perfected? Your planet was still figuring out electricity when we were already genetically engineering life forms. The humiliation burned, but Olivia forced herself to walk away. That night in her quarters, she reviewed the notes she had managed to take about the Raxes' behavior patterns. Something wasn't right about how the aliens were handling these creatures. From what she had observed, the Raxes showed signs of pack behavior similar to wolves on Earth, yet they were being kept isolated and controlled through fear. As the horizon dawn approached Nexus Prime, Olivia knew her chances to prove her worth were running out. The aliens had made it clear that they considered her presence a joke, a primitive human who thought she could contribute to an advanced galactic civilization. But deep down, she sensed that her understanding of animal behavior might be more valuable than any of them realized. She just needed a chance to show them. 3 weeks had passed since Olivia first boarded the Horizon Dawn. Life on the ship had fallen into a routine, but the constant dismissal from the alien crew wore on her. She ate her meals alone most days, watching as the other human delegates was slowly gaining respect among the Confederation species. The military personnel shared tactics with the Varaxians, the scientists collaborated with the Praxi, and the diplomats were busy learning the complex protocols of 17 different cultures. Meanwhile, Olivia had been assigned the most menial tasks, clearly meant to keep her out of the way. The ship hummed softly as she made her way to the crew assignment board. Each morning, duties were posted for all personnel. Olivia checked her name and felt her heart sink. Lieutenant Krell had assigned her to clean the Raxes holding pens. It was clearly meant as an insult, a way to remind her of her low status among the crew. "Enjoying your assignment, human?" Lieutenant Krell appeared behind her, his reptilian face twisted in what passed for a Varaxian smile. "I thought you might appreciate some time with the animals, since that is your expertise." Olivia forced herself to remain calm. "Thank you for the opportunity, Lieutenant. I look forward to observing the Raxes more closely." The Varaxian smile faded, clearly disappointed by her lack of visible distress. "Just remember, these are not your Earth puppies. Stay behind the safety barriers at all times. I would hate to explain to your captain why one of his crew became Raxes' food." Olivia nodded and walked away, heading toward the secure section where the creatures were kept. Despite the insulting nature of the assignment, she was actually eager to get a closer look at the Raxes. Something about their behavior had bothered her since she first saw them. The holding area was quiet when she arrived. The lighting was dim, simulating the dusk of whatever world the Raxes originally came from. She was given basic cleaning tools and a security bracelet that would supposedly keep the creatures at bay. The handler on duty barely looked at her before returning to his monitoring station outside the main area. Olivia began her work, moving from pen to pen. The standard cleaning procedure required her to signal the Raxes to move to a containment corner before entering each space. Most obeyed reluctantly, growling low in their throats as she worked. Up close, they were even more impressive. Their 6 legs moved with fluid grace, and their sensory organs were unlike anything she had seen on Earth. Small breathing slits lined their powerful necks, and their fur seemed to shift color slightly depending on the angle of light. As she worked, Olivia noticed patterns in their behavior. When the handlers approached, the Raxes showed obvious signs of stress. Their breathing quickened, their muscles tensed, and they avoided eye contact. But these weren't signs of respect as the aliens believed. These were signs of fear and submission. The creatures weren't loyal. They were terrified. When she reached the last pen, she paused. It was Vex's enclosure, the alpha specimen that biologist Zelna had pointed out during her tour. The massive Raxes was pacing back and forth, ignoring the signal to move to the containment corner. The security guard noticed her hesitation. "Skip that one," he called out. "Vex has been agitated all morning. We had to use the neural stunner twice already. Not worth the risk." Olivia nodded but continued to observe the creature. Its movements weren't random aggression as the guard assumed. The Raxes was displaying classic signs of social isolation distress. On Earth, pack animals kept in isolation often exhibited similar behavior. They weren't meant to be alone. She returned to her quarters that evening and recorded her observations. The next day, she sought out senior biologist Zelna in the science lab. The jellyfish-like alien was floating in front of a complex holographic display, its tentacles moving through data patterns. "Excuse me, biologist Zelna, may I speak with you about the Raxes?" The alien's body pulsed with blue light. "The human. Pet doctor, have you come to share your primitive insights?" Olivia ignored the jab. "I noticed something while cleaning the pens yesterday. The Raxes are showing signs of pack separation anxiety. They need social interaction with their own kind." Zelna's body flickered with what might have been amusement. "You presume to understand creatures that took us decades to engineer? The Raxes are designed to be independent security units. Pack behavior would interfere with their function. But they clearly display all the signs. The pacing, the stress, vocalizations, the self-grooming patterns. These are universal signs of social creatures in distress." "Universal according to Earth standards, perhaps?" Zelna replied dismissively. "The Confederation has studied behavioral biology across thousands of worlds. Your limited experience with Earth animals hardly qualifies you to make such assessments." Before Olivia could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside the lab. The ship-wide communication system activated security alert. All non-essential personnel returned to quarters immediately. Security teams to Level 4, Section 12. Zelna's body pulsed with agitated colors. "That's near the diplomatic reception chambers. The Confederation delegates from the Truslan system are meeting there now." Olivia followed Zelna as the alien rushed toward the disturbance. They weren't the only ones ignoring the order to return to quarters. The corridors filled with curious crew members heading toward the commotion. When they reached Level 4, chaos greeted them. Crew members were running in all directions. Security personnel formed a barrier at the entrance to the reception chamber. Commander Streck was shouting orders as armed guards readied what looked like neural stunners. "What's happening?" Olivia asked a nearby human crew member. "One of those Raxes things broke loose. It's in the reception hall with all the diplomats." Olivia pushed her way forward until she could see through the doorway. Inside the elegant chamber, tables had been overturned and decorations scattered across the floor. Cowering against the far wall were a group of tall, slender aliens with pale blue skin, the Truslan delegates. And between them and the door stood Vex, the Alpha Raxes, his massive form even more intimidating outside his enclosure. His fur was raised along his spine, and his amber eyes glowed with rage or fear. Olivia couldn't tell which. "Prepare to fire," Commander Streck ordered. "Maximum setting." "Wait," Olivia called out. "Those neural stunners are making it worse. Look at its reaction." Sure enough, each time a guard raised a stunner, the Raxes snarled and moved more aggressively toward the trapped delegates. "Be silent, human," Commander Streck snapped. "This is not the time for your primitive theories." Captain Wright pushed through the crowd and spotted Olivia. "Summers, get back." "That's an order." Olivia looked from the captain to the trapped delegates, then to the agitated Raxes. Everything she had observed about the creatures told her the aliens were handling this all wrong. The neural stunners, the aggressive posturing, they were only escalating the situation. If they continued, someone was going to die, either the delegates or the Raxes itself. She made her decision in an instant. Before anyone could stop her, Olivia slipped past the security line and entered the reception chamber. Behind her, she heard Captain Wright shouting her name and Commander Streck ordering the guards to hold their fire. But her focus was entirely on Vex now, the apex predator that stood between her and the terrified diplomats. The reception chamber fell silent as Olivia stepped inside. Vex the Raxes turned his massive head toward her, amber eyes fixing on this new potential threat. Behind her, she heard the collective gasp of the crew members watching from the doorway. Even the cowering Tresselin delegates seemed to hold their breath. Olivia knew she had only moments to act before either Commander Streck ordered his guards to fire or the Raxes decided to attack. She stopped about 15 feet from the creature and slowly lowered herself to a crouch. Making herself smaller was counter to every instinct screaming at her to run, but she knew what she needed to do. Years of working with aggressive predators on Earth had taught her that body language was everything. Vex growled, a deep rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the floor. His 6 legs tensed, claws extending into the polished surface beneath them. The Raxes took a step toward her, head lowered and teeth bared. "Summers, get out of there now," Captain Wright called from the doorway, his voice tight with fear. "That's a direct order." Olivia ignored him. Her focus remained entirely on Vex. She controlled her breathing, keeping it slow and steady despite her racing heart. The Raxes could smell fear, she was sure of it. She needed to project calm confidence. "It's okay," she said softly, not because she thought Vex understood English, but because the tone of her voice mattered. Low, soothing, non-threatening. "I'm not going to hurt you." The Raxes paused, head tilting slightly as if confused by her behavior. The aliens always approached with neural stunners raised, voices loud and threatening. This human was doing something different. Slowly, Olivia raised her right hand, palm open and facing outward. It was a gesture she had developed working with wolves back on Earth, not a command exactly, but a clear signal. "Stop, assess. We don't need to fight." Vex growled again, but didn't advance. His head remained tilted, studying her with those intelligent amber eyes. The tension in the room was unbearable. Olivia could hear whispered conversations from the doorway, could feel the eyes of every alien watching this impossible scene unfold. "She's going to get herself killed," Lieutenant Krell's voice carried from the entrance. "Stupid human!" Olivia continued to ignore the comments, focusing solely on the creature before her. She noticed Vex's breathing pattern had changed. The rapid, stressed panting had slowed slightly. His fur, raised along his spine moments ago, had begun to flatten in places. These were good signs. Very slowly, she shifted her position, moving from a crouch to a kneeling posture. The movement caused Vex to snarl again, but he didn't attack. Olivia held perfectly still until the growling subsided. Then she did something. It caused another collective gasp from the watching crowd. She lowered her gaze, breaking eye contact with the predator. To anyone who didn't understand animal behavior, it looked like madness, making herself vulnerable before a killer. But Olivia knew better. Direct eye contact was a challenge to many predator species. Breaking it was a sign of respect, a way of saying, "I am not a threat to your status." For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then, miraculously, Vex's growling stopped. The massive Raxes sat back on his haunches, his posture relaxing slightly. He was still alert, still dangerous, but the immediate threat of attack had diminished. Olivia dared to glance up again. Vex was watching her with what almost seemed like curiosity now. She raised her hand again, this time making a gentle sideways motion. To her amazement, the Raxes shifted slightly, moving a few steps away from the Tresselin delegates who remained frozen against the wall. Impossible, she heard biologist Zelna whisper from somewhere behind her. The Raxias responds only to handler pheromones and neural commands. Emboldened by her success, Olivia slowly rose to her feet. Vex tensed again, but didn't resume growling. She began to move sideways, creating a path between the delegates and the door. With each step, she used the same hand gesture, guiding the Raxies away from the aliens. "Please," she said quietly to the Trestlin delegates, "move slowly toward the exit while he's focused on me." The tall, blue-skinned aliens didn't need to be told twice. With graceful, silent movements, they began edging along the wall toward the door. Vex noticed and started to turn toward them, but Olivia made a soft clicking sound with her tongue that instantly drew his attention back to her. "That's right," she murmured. "Focus on me. I'm much more interesting." The Raxies tilted his head again, those amber eyes studying her with undisguised interest now. The last of the Trestlin delegates slipped through the doorway to safety, leaving Olivia alone with the creature in the wrecked reception chamber. Now came the hard part. She needed to get the Raxies back to containment without anyone using those neural stunners that clearly caused the creature pain and aggression. She glanced toward the doorway where Commander Streck, Captain Wright, and a dozen security personnel watched in astonishment. "Please tell your guards to lower their weapons," she said calmly. "I can lead him back to his enclosure, but not if he feels threatened." Commander Streck looked like he wanted to argue, but the evidence before him was undeniable. Somehow this human had done what their best handlers couldn't: calmed and enraged Raxies without technology or force. "Lower your weapons," he ordered reluctantly. Olivia turned her attention back to Vex. She took a slow step backward toward the door, then another. The Raxies watched her, then, to everyone's amazement, followed. One careful step at a time, Olivia backed out of the reception chamber with the massive predator following her. Like an obedient pet, the corridor cleared instantly as crew members pressed themselves against walls or ducked into side passages. Olivia maintained her calm, steady pace all the way to the Raxies' holding area, speaking softly to Vex the entire time. The creature followed her without hesitation, keeping a constant distance between them. When they reached his reinforced enclosure, Olivia faced her biggest challenge. She needed Vex to enter voluntarily. The standard procedure involved handlers using neural stunners to force compliance, but she knew that would undo all the trust she had built. She stopped at the open door to the enclosure and gestured inside. Vex hesitated, clearly associating the space with isolation and discomfort. Olivia knelt down again, bringing herself to eye level with the creature. "I know you don't want to go back in there," she said softly, "but I promise things will be different now." The Raxies studied her for a long moment. Then, to the amazement of the security personnel watching from a safe distance, he slowly walked into the enclosure. Olivia followed him inside, ignoring the alarmed shouts from the handlers. She spent a few minutes with Vex in the enclosure, using gentle hand motions and soothing words until the creature settled in a corner. Only then did she back out, allowing the automatic door to close between them. Vex watched her through the transparent barrier, his amber eyes following her movements until she was out of sight. The moment the enclosure sealed, Olivia found herself surrounded by stunned alien crew members. Captain Wright pushed through the crowd, his expression a mixture of relief and bewilderment. "Summers, that was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever seen," he said. "How did you do it?" Before she could answer, Commander Streck stepped forward, his reptilian features unreadable. "Yes, human. Explain how you commanded our apex predator when our best handlers cannot approach without neural control." Olivia stood before the ship's leadership council in the main conference room. All eyes were on her, the human who had somehow managed to control the most dangerous creature on the ship without technology or force. Commander Streck sat at the center of the curved table, his reptilian features still showing traces of disbelief. Captain Wright stood beside Olivia, his presence a silent show of support. "The Trestlin delegation has expressed their gratitude," Commander Streck began. "They believe you saved their lives today. Now explain to us how you did it." Olivia took a deep breath. This was her chance to make them understand, to prove that her knowledge wasn't primitive after all. The Raxes aren't just security weapons, she said. They're intelligent pack animals with complex social needs. The way you've been handling them, isolating them, controlling them through fear and pain has made them unpredictable and dangerous. Senior biologist Zelna's body pulsed with agitated colors. That's absurd. We designed them specifically to function as independent units. With respect, Olivia continued, you can't simply engineer away millions of years of evolution. The base species you used to create the Raxes must have been pack hunters. Everything about their behavior indicates it. Their communication patterns, their response to isolation, even the way Vex responded to my body language. And what exactly did you do? Asked Commander Streck. I showed him respect, Olivia said. Simply, I made myself non-threatening. I used body language that acknowledged his power rather than challenging it. On Earth, apex predators don't respond well to direct confrontation. They perceive it as a threat and react accordingly. Lieutenant Krell, who had been unusually quiet since the incident, finally spoke up. Are you suggesting our handling protocols are flawed? We've used neural control on the Raxes for decades. And how many incidents have you had? How many handlers have been injured? How many times has a Raxes had to be terminated because it became too aggressive? Olivia asked. The silence that followed told her everything she needed to know. These weren't rare occurrences at all. The neural stunners cause pain, she continued. Pain creates fear. Fear eventually turns to aggression. It's a cycle that gets worse over time, not better. Commander Streck leaned forward. You're proposing an alternative? Olivia nodded. Let me work with them. Let me implement a training program based on mutual respect rather than dominance. I believe the Raxes can be more effective, more reliable security partners if they choose to work with you instead of being forced. The aliens exchanged glances. The concept seemed foreign to them. This is how you train animals on Earth? Captain Wright asked. The most effective methods, yes. Force can make an animal obey temporarily, but understanding their nature creates lasting cooperation. Commander Streck's tail twitched as he considered. The human will be given 2 weeks to demonstrate her methods with the Raxes Vex. If there's improvement, we will consider extending the program to the others. Olivia could hardly believe it. She had been given a chance to prove herself the next morning. She began her work with Vex. The handlers watched skeptically as she entered. His enclosure without neural stunners or protective gear. Vex recognized her immediately, his amber eyes, tracking her movements with interest rather than hostility. Over the following days, Olivia established a routine. She spent hours with Vex, using simple hand signals and vocal cues to build a communication system. She discovered that the Raxes had an incredible capacity for understanding patterns and intentions. By the end of the first week, Vex was responding to over a dozen different commands. More surprising to the alien crew was how Olivia allowed Vex limited freedom. Instead of keeping him confined, she began walking him through certain sections of the ship on a special lead she had designed. The crew members were terrified at first, pressing themselves against walls when they passed. But as days went by, they marveled at how docile the once fearsome creature had become in Olivia's presence. Word spread throughout the horizon. Dawn, crew members from all species began finding excuses to pass by the training areas to witness the human and the Raxes working together. Even Lieutenant Krell could be spotted watching from doorways, though he always left quickly if Olivia noticed him. At the end of the 2-week trial period, Commander Streck and the Leadership Council gathered to witness a demonstration. Olivia had prepared a series of security exercises to show Vex's progress. The Raxes performed flawlessly, responding to both verbal and hand signals, locating hidden objects by scent, and even allowing a nervous Trestlin delegate to approach under Olivia's guidance. Remarkable, Commander Streck admitted when the demonstration concluded. The creature seems almost like a different species. He's the same Raxes, Olivia explained. He just needed to be understood and respected. There's something else, Senior Biologist Zelna added, floating forward. We've been conducting tests to understand why the Raxes respond so well to Olivia specifically. Our findings are quite fascinating. The jellyfish-like alien projected a holographic display. Humans possess unique pheromonal signatures that the Raxes respond to differently than any other species in the Confederation. It's not something we could have anticipated, as we've never worked with human biology before. Captain Wright looked intrigued. Are you saying all humans could do what Olivia does? Not exactly, Zelna replied. The pheromones create a baseline compatibility, but Olivia's specific techniques are equally important. It's a combination of biology and methodology. Commander Streck turned to Olivia. Your trial period is extended. You will train a team of handlers in your methods, and we will gradually transition all Raxes units to your approach. Olivia felt a surge of pride. After weeks of being dismissed and mocked, she had finally proven her worth. As the meeting concluded, Lieutenant Krell approached her, his usual sneer notably absent. The commander has assigned me to your training program, he said stiffly. I am to learn your methods for handling the Raxes. Olivia couldn't help but smile at the irony. I look forward to working with you, Lieutenant. He nodded curtly and walked away, his tail twitching with what might have been embarrassment over the next month. As the Horizon Dawn continued its journey to Nexus Prime, Olivia's position aboard the ship transformed completely. The other human delegates watched with amazement as she went from being the ridiculed pet doctor to one of the most respected specialists on board. Alien scientists sought her insights about behavioral patterns in their bioengineered creatures. Security personnel listened attentively to her training sessions. Even Commander Streck had begun to treat her with a measure of respect. But perhaps the most significant change was in the Raxes themselves. As Olivia's methods were implemented across all units, incidents of aggression dropped dramatically. The creatures seemed calmer, more alert, and more effective in their security duties. Vex, once considered the most dangerous specimen, had become the model for the new training program. One evening, as Olivia finished a training session with a group of handlers, she found Captain Wright waiting for her outside the facility. Impressive work, Summers, he said with a smile. The Confederation representatives are talking about implementing your methods across their entire fleet. Olivia shook her head in disbelief. A month ago they thought I was a joke, and now you've changed how an entire interstellar civilization thinks about animal behavior, Captain Wright replied. Not bad for a primitive human, wouldn't you say? As they walked through the corridor, Vex padding quietly beside them, Olivia reflected on how far she had come. Perhaps humans did have something unique to offer the Galactic Confederation after all. 6 months had passed since the Horizon Dawn arrived at Nexus Prime, the central hub world of the Galactic Confederation. The massive space station orbiting the planet had become Olivia's new home. From the viewport in her quarters, she could see dozens of ships coming and going each day, carrying representatives from all 17 member species. And now, humans were on the verge of becoming the 18th. Olivia adjusted her new uniform, the dark blue fabric now adorned with silver insignia marking her as the director of the Interspecies Behavioral Research Center. The name still made her smile. 6 months ago, she had been a small-town veterinarian from Montana. Now she led a team of scientists from across the galaxy, studying and improving relationships between sentient species and the creatures they had engineered. Vex sat near her feet, his massive form relaxed yet alert. The Alpha Raxes had become her constant companion, a living symbol of what could be achieved through understanding rather than force. Together they had changed how the Confederation approached their bioengineered security creatures. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. Enter, Olivia called. Captain Wright stepped inside, his uniform freshly pressed for the upcoming ceremony. Ready for the big day, Director Summers? Olivia smiled. Still getting used to that title. How are the preparations going? The voting chamber is filled to capacity. Every Confederation species has sent representatives for the membership vote. He paused, his expression growing more serious. You know, when we first set out on this mission, no one thought humanity would be granted full membership so quickly. Most provisional species wait decades for a vote. We got lucky, Olivia said, bending down to scratch Vex behind his ear slits. Luck had nothing to do with it, Captain Wright replied. Your work with the Raxies changed everything. The Varaxians were our strongest opponents, and now they're among our strongest advocates. Olivia followed Captain Wright through the corridors of the station toward the grand chamber where the vote would take place. Everywhere they walked, people stopped to observe them, or more accurately, to observe Vex walking calmly at Olivia's side. Many still found it hard to believe that the feared apex predators could be so docile without neural control. They passed a group of praxi scientists, their gelatinous bodies pulsing with excited colors. Senior biologist Zelna floated at the front of the group and gave what passed for a respectful nod in their direction. Director Summers, the latest test results from the juvenile Raxies breeding program have exceeded expectations. The specimens raised from birth using your methods show even greater intelligence and cooperation than the converted adults. That's wonderful news, Olivia replied. I'd like to visit the nursery later this week if possible. Of course. Your insights continue to be invaluable. As they approached the voting chamber, Olivia spotted Lieutenant Krell, now promoted to Security Chief Krell, directing a team of human and Varaxian handlers, each partnered with their own Raxies. The sight still amazed her. 6 months ago, the reptilian officer had mocked her at every opportunity. Now he implemented her training methods with rigid precision. Krell noticed her and straightened to attention. Director, the security teams are in position for the ceremony. Thank you, Chief Krell. How is your partner doing? Krell glanced down at the Raxies by his side, a younger female with unusual silver markings. Nyx is performing excellently. Your adjustments to her training routine resolved the scent tracking issues, Olivia nodded, hiding her smile. Krell would probably never admit how much he had come to care for his Raxies partner, but she could see it in the way he positioned himself protectively near the creature. The grand doors to the voting chamber slid open, revealing a vast circular room with tiered seating. Representatives from all Confederation species filled the space, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic life. At the center stood the raised platform where the human delegation would present their final case for membership. Captain Wright led Olivia to her seat among the human representatives. Ambassador Kelly, the head of the diplomatic team, nodded respectfully as Olivia sat down. Vex settled at her feet, drawing curious and admiring glances from nearby delegates. Commander Streck, now promoted to Confederation Security Director, approached their section. The vote begins in 10 minutes. The Council has requested that you and Vex participate in the presentation, Director Summers. Olivia looked surprised. Me? I thought Ambassador Kelly was handling the final address. The Council believes your work represents the most compelling argument for human inclusion. Your understanding of behavior across species demonstrates an insight that many of our technological civilizations have overlooked. As the chamber lights dimmed and the formal proceedings began, Olivia felt a flutter of nervousness. This was far beyond anything she had imagined when she first joined the mission. One by one, representatives from each Confederation species rose to express their position on human membership. Most spoke favorably, citing the rapid advancements in Raxies handling and interspecies cooperation when it was time for the human delegation to make their final statement. Ambassador Kelly spoke briefly about diplomatic goals and scientific exchange programs. Then she gestured to Olivia. But perhaps the most compelling reason to welcome humanity into the Confederation can be demonstrated rather than explained. I yield my remaining time to Director Olivia Summers. Olivia rose and walked to the center platform with Vex at her side. She looked out at the assembled delegates, feeling the weight of every eye upon her. 6 months ago, many of you questioned why a veterinary behaviorist was included in the first human delegation, she began. Some mockingly called me a pet doctor with primitive understanding. Today, I don't stand before you to argue that. You were wrong. Instead, I want to demonstrate what we've all learned together. She turned to Vex and made a simple hand gesture. The massive Raxes moved to the center of the platform and sat, his amber eyes scanning the chamber calmly. The Raxes were engineered to be the perfect security force, fearsome, powerful, and controlled through technology. But what they needed wasn't more advanced neural stunners or genetic modifications. What they needed was understanding, respect, for their nature rather than an attempt to override it. She made another gesture, and Vex rose, moving with fluid grace around the platform, demonstrating a series of complex behaviors that would have been impossible under the old training system. Humanity's contribution to the Confederation isn't superior technology or military might. Our contribution is perspective. Sometimes, looking at old problems with fresh eyes reveals solutions that advanced civilizations might overlook. As she concluded her demonstration, the chamber erupted in approving sounds from various species, Varaxian tail thumps, Praxi light pulses, and human applause all blending together. The voting process that followed was mere formality. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would become the 18th full member of the Galactic Confederation after the ceremony. As delegates mingled in the reception area, Olivia found a quiet moment with Captain Wright and Vex. "Not bad for a small-town vet from Montana," Captain Wright said. Raising a glass and toast, Olivia smiled, running her hand along Vex's fur. "I still can't believe how much has changed. Who would have thought that understanding animal behavior would be our ticket to the stars?" "I think that's exactly what makes humans valuable to the Confederation," Captain Wright replied. "We're still connected to our evolutionary past in ways these advanced civilizations aren't. They engineered away problems, we learned to live with them." As they spoke, a group of new human arrivals entered the reception area. Olivia recognized them immediately, the first group of animal behaviorists she had helped select from Earth. Coming to train as Raxes handlers and researchers, their eyes were wide with wonder as they took in the diverse alien life forms around them. Olivia went to greet them, Vex padding alongside her. The apex predator that had once been feared throughout the Confederation now served as a bridge between species, a living example of what could be achieved through understanding rather than force. As the newest human recruits bowed respectfully to her, Olivia thought about how far she had come, from being mocked as irrelevant to helping secure humanity's place among the stars, all because she understood something the advanced aliens had forgotten, that sometimes the gentlest approach tames the fiercest heart.